Welcome to Buckets. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by my colleague, Brandon Anderson, NBA futures analyst, which is perfect because we're talking NBA futures today. We're going to focus on Rookie of the Year. As we record this, Summer League is actually wrapping up. We're doing this one a little bit in advance because there's not a whole lot that's going to change on these odds. And so we want to give you a primer on how to bet Rookie of the Year, the things to keep in mind, the market to look at, and how best to bet it in the preseason, as well as we'll talk a little bit about strategies for doing it throughout the regular season. We'll also obviously give you some picks for who we think, if you want to bet it now, who the players to bet on are. We'll give you some tips on where you can find the best odds, different players. We'll go through the prime suspects towards the back half of the show. Brandon, let's start right here. You've established some Rookie of the Year criteria that you feel best encompasses what the history of the award says and how to bet it. Some basic rules for betting Rookie of the Year. What you got?
All right, so we're going to start easy. We'll work our way up here. Rule number one, you have to score points. You have to score. Since LeBron in 2004, all but one Rookie of the Year scored at least 15 points a game. So you need 15. 15 doesn't seem like a lot, but for rookies, we don't have too many guys that hit that bar usually. It's 18 out of the last 19 Rookies of the Year, at least 15 points a game. The average, 17.6 points a game in there. I didn't average out rebounds, assists, because obviously different positions, that's going to mess that up a little bit. However, 13 out of the last 20 Rookies of the Year led the rookies in points per game. That's 65%. It's pretty good. If you can figure out who leads in points per game, you have a 2/3 chance of nailing the Rookie of the Year.
So let me ask you as a devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Because I agree with you. Like, this is a pretty obvious and simple one to take, but I do want to ask this question. If we had a rookie, and this is hard to do, but if we had a rookie that was top 10, let's say top five in assists, right? But he was averaging 13 and 9, right? Or 13 and 8.5. Okay. Do you think that rookie, do you think the rule would still hold? Like, can you see if a rookie was theoretically near the top of the list for assists per game, was the primary distributor, which now, again, the league has shifted a lot to where we're not going to see this. Thanks, Steph Curry. But if we're never going to see that kind of thing. But if we were to see it, and we'll talk about rebounds in a minute, because it's always an annual conversation between you and I. But can you see a formula for a player being a high production assists outweighing that, even if it was just like an outlier? Like, I guess how ironclad, I guess, is this rule in your mind?
Yes. So I'm going to answer that question by transitioning towards rule number two. So again, 65% of our last 2 decades of Rookies of the Year led in points per game. 65% is pretty good. However, rule number one, you have to score points. Rule number two, you always want the top points plus rebounds plus assists guy. So that's what we're going to get into, what you're just asking about. Just getting the points per game leader is not necessarily enough. 65% good, but what I didn't say is this: 4 of our last 5 Rookies of the Year did not lead points per game. So the way that we're trending is not just points. The way we're trending is assists and rebounds and overall game. Scotty Barnes, Ja Morant, Ben Simmons, Malcolm Brogdon, not points per game leaders. So back to LeBron. Since LeBron, 15 of the last 18 Rookies of the Year, so that's 83%, led rookies in points, rebounds, assists. PRA, the prop, the same way you bet it. And the guys that didn't lead were second, and third. And by the way, 2 of those guys shouldn't have, won Rookie of the Year because Zion got hurt and because Joel Embiid got hurt. So otherwise, we are nearly batting 17 of 18 on pick the points, rebounds, assists leader. You got the Rookie of the Year. So that's where, to answer your question, if you get the guy who gets enough assists, or I think maybe enough rebounds based on what this formula is telling us, to make up the points deficit, you said, okay, how about 13 and 9, 13 points, 9 assists? Well, if my points leader has 17, I got to make up 4 points. So 9 assists is a pretty good way to do that, because 17 and 4 versus 13 and 9, I come out ahead on that equation. So points, rebound, assists has been much stronger than just points alone.
So last year, Scotty Barnes, ruiner of dreams, averaged 22.8 points and rebounds per game. Do you have the PRAs for last season?
PRA, I have just Scotty's. I don't have all of them last year.
Okay, so 22.8 points and rebounds, and with a 3.5,
so 26.3.
Yeah, 26.
25.3.
25.3. Evan Mobley was at 23 points and rebounds. So he had more points and rebounds. And
25.8 PRA.
Yeah. So it's 25.8 to what was Scotty's?
This is great podcasting. 26.1, I think.
Okay, so Scotty did not have the highest PRA. He was ahead of number 2 Evan Mobley just barely because Evan dropped off late in the year. Again, Evan, if it wasn't for the injuries, I think Evan gets that award. Should have won it. He was better. But Cade actually led them in PRA.
Correct.
So how do we? I mean, I know it's like 1 year, right? I pushed back on you last year about the rebounds, and the evidence has been pretty strong, right? And like Barnes winning over Mobley, I think is a credit in part to this idea of the PRA mattering. My question for you is just like, do you feel like the voters are looking at it and being like, oh, he had more PRA, so I'm going to vote? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's what I don't know how to like factor in that PRA has had such a high correlation.
Yeah.
To actually thinking about the voting process.
So yeah, that's a really good question. No, I absolutely don't. I think there are very few, if any, voters who sit down, look at 5 guys worth of stats, add up the thing, and are like, "Ooh, boy, well, this guy's box score total is the most, so he's probably going to be my winner." I don't think anyone is doing that. Certainly not in 2022. So I don't think that that's it. To me, these are not. Plus, also, we don't have the stats. We're predicting stats too. So it's like, okay, we're not predicting rookie of the year. We're predicting the numbers, but we still don't know. To me, these are not like, okay, now we have our answer. We know the rookie of the year. These are more baselines. Like if I look at a rookie and I don't see, and there are a few guys, I have a few guys on my list for this year that we'll get to. If I don't see even a realistic path at all to get to 15 points a game, then I need to see that as a major red flag for you. And here's PRA. Last 5 rookie of the year. Here's the stat line: 17.2 points, 6.6 rebounds, 6.2 assists a game. That adds up to exactly 30 PRA. Since LeBron, all but 2 rookie of the year, at least 25 PRA. So again, baseline. That doesn't mean you have to do everything. But if I look, if I think, okay, Paolo Banchero, number 1 pick, what line can he put up? If I put a line out for him, and I can't even get realistically to 25, that needs to be a red flag for me to be like, okay, well, I can like his impact all I want, but history says that's just not enough numbers in the end. So I don't think that people are deciding only on the numbers, but history tells us that it's factoring into the decision somehow.
I think it's less factoring into the decision and more the decisions are often reflected by the numbers. Does that make sense? Like, I think
I think that's a better way of saying it. Yes.
Like, if you have these stat lines, you're likely having success. And if you're having success individually,
yes,
whether, the team success, I think, is kind of separate. It doesn't mean wins and losses, obviously.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to in rule 3. I just think, and here's a good way to think of it, right? If we look at the PRA, a 17-5-3 guy might be able to win it over a 19-4-2 guy.
Right.
Doesn't mean he will. The 19-4-2 guy will absolutely be in the conversation if he's averaging 19 a game. You know, like a good baseline. You mentioned the 30 PRA baseline. My immediate thought was Tyreke Evans, who in 2009 averaged 25-5 or 25-5-5. That was like a huge deal that he was like averaging the stat line. Miss you, Reek. He was so fun that rookie season.
It was.
All right. So number 3, let's talk about what it's not. Let's talk about what the rules say that this award is not about.
So rule number 3, this award, rookie of the year, is not about defense. It's not about efficiency. It's not about wins. So I don't have as much numbers on here, but defense. If I look back at, again, like the last 2 decades or so of rookie of the year, 2005, Emeka Okafor, definitely defense is a big part of why you vote Emeka Okafor to win anything. Like, that's his game. Since 2005, I don't really see a lot of, like, we don't have a lot of metrics for defense. We know. Ben Simmons, 2018, I think defense is part of his case. I think you'd argue that Scotty's case last year. Defense probably at least played part in it. Maybe Malcolm Brogdon, maybe Chris Paul. Like that's the list to me of looking back at the rookies of the year. Where was defense maybe part of the equation? And it's not that strong for really any of them, I think, except for Ben. So defense, again, not a lot of metrics, but doesn't look very strong. Efficiency. Again, we don't have a great way to measure this, but I think we know we're not expecting rookies to come out and put up these amazing true shooting and BPM and VORPs and all
50, 40, 90.
Like they're not going to 50, 40, 90 rookie. It's not going to happen. So just for an easy metric, I looked at box plus minus on Basketball Reference. That's an all-in-one way. It's one of the things I use to track players. So rookie of the year, last 15 rookies of the year, average BPM finish is 3.6. It's good. You're a top 5 rookie in BPM, but you're not necessarily number 1. Only 5 of the last 15 rookies to win rookie of the year led in BPM that season. And that's putting, I think, like a 300-minute baseline on it. So in fact, under half of the last 15 were even top 2 in BPM. As a side note, it's interesting. A lot of times there are guys who were better in BPM but didn't win rookie of the year. And now like 5 and 10 years later, I'm like, that guy actually was better. Maybe we should have paid attention to that. But the advanced metrics aren't deciding who wins rookie of the year. The getting the numbers is. And you kind of alluded to this too. Part of it is he's going to play. You have to be good enough to earn minutes. And if you're good enough to earn minutes, then your PRA will be higher. And that all kind of plays into it. The wins thing here is what really stood out to me. It's not necessarily about wins. Again, last 15 rookies of the year averaged 32.8 wins. So basically 33 and 49 season. That's including pace for the strike seasons and whatever. They averaged the 10.8 seed in their conference. That makes sense. Rookies of the year usually are the top rookies, the top picks. They're going to bad teams. Bad teams are probably going to lose. Rookies don't necessarily change that right away. Bad teams have more playing time for rookies. So it's not necessarily a winning team. Only 4 of the last 15 rookies of the year were a top 8 seed. So not defense, not efficiency, not wins.
It's really fun. It's really funny that last year is such an outlier to this. So
yes, I know.
Cade leads in PRA, does not win. He was your preseason pick.
Yes.
Scotty, you're saying BPM doesn't lead to it. Scotty leads last year in BPM.
Scotty was second, actually. Jose Alvarado was number 1.
I've got it for qualified for
sure.
Points per game leaderboard here on there. So qualified for leaderboard, it's Scotty and then Evan Mobley and then Bones Highland and then Herb Jones and then Franz Wagner, who honestly did not get enough credit for his rookie
who's
season.
Great.
Okay, so like the wins make sense, right? Like everyone kind of expects them to be bad. A lot of this is about the expectations, I think, for rookies. This annoys me, quite honestly, because I'm like, if you're not expected to your team to be good, but you contribute to a winning team, you should get bonus points.
Yeah, I agree.
Steven Adams is the big one back in the day that I was so pissed about. I was like, Steven Adams is starting for a Western Conference title contender. Like, he is incredible. Why? Like, he has done he helps them win. It's the point of basketball. But no, you're right that it's always going to go to guys that put up the stat lines, and winning is never going to be as important as those.
Yeah.
And then finally, your rule number 4, you actually have 2 more. Sorry, is always bet on a top pick. Tell me more.
All right, so a lot of numbers for you. Since the 1950s, there are only 4 rookies of the year that were not a top 10 draft pick.
Okay.
Only 4, which was insane to me. I kept drawing the line shorter and shorter. I was like, okay, how many non-first rounds? Just Malcolm Brogdon. How many non-lottery picks? And I kept shortening it. There are only 4: Brogdon, Michael Carter-Williams, Mark Jackson, Jamal Wilkes. That's it. Outside the top 10 since the 50s. That's 4 out of 62. So you could basically narrow it to just the top 10 picks. You got 93.5% of the rookies of the year. There's only 1 pick ever after pick number 18 since the 50s. So that's top 10. Narrow it further. Same span. Outside the top 5, only 13 out of 62 rookies of the year.
Okay.
So just top 5 picks alone, you're still at 79% rookie of the year. 4 out of every 5 rookies of the year, you got a top 5 pick. Narrow it further. Now we're going to go a little more modern. Since 1990, which I believe was David Robinson. Since 1990, Top 3 pick, rookie of the year, 23 out of 40, 68%. So 2 out of every 3 rookies of the year, better than 2 out of every 3, are a top 3 pick.
But
Same time frame. Sorry.
But we're heading in the other direction a little bit.
We're heading the other direction, but I'm narrowing. We're down to top 3 picks now. Same time frame, number 1 pick. Just number 1 pick. Close your eyes, don't watch basketball, bet on whoever is the number 1 pick since 1990. 15 out of 34 rookies of the year, 44% rookie of the year. Almost half of them was just the number 1 pick.
Okay.
Those, to me, I expected that trend in that direction. I did not expect that to be so strong. Overwhelmingly, what this is telling you historically, and I know we'll argue about exactly how much does historically say, overwhelmingly it says you have to pick someone in the top 5, probably top 3, and you should probably just default to the number 1 pick unless you have a really good reason not to.
Okay. It's interesting that honestly, I would consider the fact that only 15 out of 44. Is that right? 34?
15 out of 34 number 1 picks since 1990.
So that's actually lower than I would think it. I would think I would think that the draft classes would establish number 1 picks at a higher, like that they would hit slightly above 50%. So it's against what I think, but it's not like bad.
Well, it's fair because, we don't have it this year, but some years you have a LeBron, you have a Shaq, some years you just know who the rookie of the year is going in. And I don't have a way to look back and see what were the odds when Shaq was the rookie? What were the betting odds? Where I'm just looking at who won it or not. A little more narrowed in further. Again, these last 15 rookies of the year, 9 out of the last 15 rookies of the year were a top 3 pick. So that's 60%. You said earlier, we're going the other way. We are going a little bit down there. It was 68% last since 1990, 60%. However, 2 guys were number 4. Scotty was number 4. Evan Mobley probably would have won. He's a top 3 pick. Malcolm Brogdon won it. Joel Embiid was a top 3 pick. Malcolm Brogdon is Mr. Outlier on every single rule that I've said so far. So he's the one guy that fits nothing. Otherwise, 12 of the last 15, if Mobley and Embiid stay healthy, 12 of the last 15 are top 3 picks. Okay. So again, it makes sense. If you're a higher pick, you are a better player. That's what we've decided. That's why we're drafting you high. You're going to get more playing time. You are probably readier to play. It is selection bias, but it's in our favor. It's saying you should start with the guys at the top. That's why they're at the top.
Well, I think it's more important just to be like, look, if you got 10 through 30, throw them out. Like 11 through 30, just toss them. Right? Like it's elimination, I think, for me more is like you're 11 through 30 and you better really like 6 through 10. Like you better be like,
yes,
this specific, not just like, oh, I really like this guy. You better be like, no. He looked awesome in summer league. I know they've talked about him getting like started. Like you better be sure if you're going to put that bet in before the season starts. Rule number 6 is kind of like a contrary move. So
this is my Matt Moore rule, because this was Matt and I think a little differently about these things. So I think what you just said is really important. These are not necessarily like, look, you could just take the rule I just said and be like, okay, so podcast over, bet number 1, it's Paolo. That's it. End of discussion. That's not what I'm doing here. To me, the key is exactly what you just said. These are ruling people out. If I can take 30 picks, I'm going to take 58 picks this year and say, rule out 28, they're second rounders, not going to happen. Rule out 20 more, they're not in top 10, not going to happen. Now I'm down to 10. Like I'm just trying to narrow my options here. But I had to ask the question because this is the question you always ask me, and it's a good one. Are voter patterns shifting? And a lot of the metrics tell us that they might be, because the last 5 or 6 years of rookie of the year look a little different. So I told you the rookie of the year stats from the last 5 years, and 17, 6.5 rebounds, 6 assists. 4 of those last 6 rookies of the year did not lead points per game. So that was rule number 1. They broke it. 3 of our last 6 did not lead PRA. That's rule number 2. 3 of our last 6 broke the rule. Last 5 rookies of the year finished first, second, and 5th in BPM. So recently, advanced metrics do matter. And actually, we are choosing the best rookie most of the time. I said for the last 15 rookies of the year, we're not a top 8 seed. However, 3 of the last 6 were a top 8 seed.
Huh.
And 4 of the last 6 made the playoffs because John Morant was a 9 seed and then won a play-in game. So our last 6 seeds, we got a 5, a 3, a 6, a 9, a 10. We have teams that are not terrible anymore in here. We have teams that are, those are all postseason teams. Even the 10 seed in there, the way that we do it now, that's a postseason team. So does a winning situation matter now? And then here's the other thing. This didn't really fit anywhere, but positionality. Does positionality matter on this? Since said Emeka Okafor 2005, since him, if I'm looking at what I would call a big man in the NBA, and just to clarify, like, I'm going to not call Kevin Durant a big man. Kevin Durant, as a rookie, not a big man. He's a small forward, maybe even a guard. Big men rookie of the year winners since 2005, Blake Griffin, Karl Anthony Towns, end of list. We have 2 big men rookie of the year winners. Now, to be fair, Joel Embiid would have won, didn't play enough. Zion would have won, didn't play enough. Evan Mobley maybe would have won, didn't play enough. But big men kind of get hurt a little more often. Maybe that should factor into our decision. The top 3 picks this year are big men. The rule that says we should be betting on a big man, this rule or whatever it is, not great. 5 of the last 6 rookies of the year were probably what you would call a point guard, depending on how you classify depending on how you classify Luka or Ben Simmons. If they're point guards, 5 of our last 6 are point guards. And by the way, Scotty, he's the non-point guard. He played point guard for some of those games when, like, Fred VanVleet was out, like he was running the offense. So here's kind of my takeaway from all of those things. I think the way the NBA is moving, and I think why the PRA thing still fits as a big indicator, not necessarily a clincher, is kind of how you would call this. Not necessarily that you need to be the point guard. You need to be the engine. You need to be the hub. Like, you need to have the offense going through you, which probably was the case for like a Blake Griffin, which helps a big man to win. But that's if things are running through you, you're a Simmons, a Luka, a Scotty less so. But if things are running through you, you're going to have a better chance to get your shots, your assists. You're going to be more involved in rebounds. And it kind of comes full circle to the picture that we're painting. So thoughts on any of that stuff?
One thing I'll probably look at after we get done here is, and we'll have this before the season starts, because we'll revisit this before the season begins. I want to look at pick and roll rates, because when you say this kind of thing, an easy way to kind of shortcut it is just to look at how many times did they operate in pick and roll, right? If we can go back and we can look at the rates of pick and roll for the various rookies, then I can get an estimate of how often are they involved in the primary action that decides most of NBA offense. Like, most of the NBA offense is pick and roll. That's most of it. And that would kind of be the missing gap in between the guard big equation. Is just like, how often are you running pick and roll? How often do you have the ball in your hands? Because there's probably a correlation between the frequency of pick and roll, which has been such a, like, it just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. It went down a little bit this year. But that correlation to rookies that have the ball in their hands, right? It's less about, are you a point guard? Are you a shooting guard? And it's more of like, are you the guy that runs pick and roll? Because like, even Scotty, I don't necessarily think that he like ran point as much as I think that he was the primary initiator in pick and roll action. And that's true. That differentiator.
Well, and Scotty is more of an outlier to that point. But I do, we talked about ruling guys out. So I think that certainly, not that you were going to bet them anyways, but in case the listener is going to bet them, first round picks, Walker Kessler, Mark Williams, Jalen Duren, even Jeremy Sohan, top 10 pick. He should fit into our guys to consider. Probably not guys that you should be betting on based on this idea of being the hub. Like, they're not going to get enough touches that way. Yeah. But this is where I want to transition now to talking about, like, okay, who should we bet on? Because to me, that last thing is very informative on how I'm looking at these top 3 guys. Because the big takeaway for me on all the rules is start with the top 3. If I can look at the top 3 and decide, who do I feel strongest about in the top 3? That probably should be my bet. And last year, that was Cade Cunningham for me. I did not feel like Evan Mobley would be ready enough. I thought Jalen Green would take too much time to ramp up and have too many on games or off games. And I drew the line at top 3. Scotty was 4th. And so then I just kind of missed out on him. But I think looking at Paolo and Chet Holmgren and Jabari Smith, to me, an absolutely key difference, and we saw it at Summer League, is that Paolo is going to be this hub engine of Orlando's offense. Things are going to run through him. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, making decisions. He's going to get assists. He's going to get his shots up. I don't think we're going to see that from Chet Holmgren. I don't think we're going to see it from Jabari Smith. Not this year, at least. What do you think?
I agree. So if we're going to just do best bets here, right? I will tell you, and we'll talk about why I'm not betting this now. I will probably put in a Paolo bet. I'll probably put in a bet on the other guy I think is worth betting on, which we'll get to in a second. But it's not going to be nearly like last year. I went heavy preseason on Jalen Green, and it was a disaster for me. I had to chase the entire season. Now I made it up because we talked about how we basically parlayed the awards winners. We'll talk about that a lot going into the season, about the books that allow you to parlay the awards winners. Oh God, is their value. It's just incredible that we were able to get, like, we were still able to get Ja at like a small plus number mid-season. We were able to hedge effectively on Draymond Green with Marcus Smart late in the season.
Yeah. For me, I missed out on Jokic for MVP for much of the year. And then late in the season was still able to turn a profit despite my Steph MVP position and my heavy Giannis position. Still turn a profit because I just parlayed Jokic with a couple other award winners and got his number up high enough.
Yeah. The value on rookie of the year, we'll get to in a second as far as like when to bet it. But as we look at the guys based off of Summer League and talking to scouts and things like that, and just like looking at how they view him, this is tough because I don't want to make these declarative statements. It's Summer League and there's months to go and there's so much that can happen. I'm just telling you that nobody looked like Paolo. Like, it was Paolo and then a big gap and then Chet and Keegan Murray and Benedict Mathurin and Jaden Ivey, and then a gap, and then Jabari Smith, and then a big gap, and everybody else. Like, Paolo Banchero could not have had a better Summer League. He looked monstrous. His size looked like he was dwarfing NBA vets. He muscled past dudes routinely. He showed passing ability. He made very slick passes. They had him operating out of pick and roll as a primary initiator. They had him operating out of the post. He was attacking inside consistently. Paolo looked awesome. And like you've noted this for us to talk about is that like the odds are all over the place in terms of like where you can find the number at. He's plus 330 on DraftKings. He's plus 400
plus 400 on DraftKings.
Yeah, he's plus 400 at DraftKings. He's plus 330 at FanDuel. Like, you can find these numbers. That's probably going to get shorter. I'll tell you that. Like, Paolo's probably going to start taking on money. Like, he was unquestionably like the guy. And it's like, well, it's the number one pick. I'll just tell you, like, we've had number one picks. Like, I would not have wanted to bet on him. Like last year, I didn't want to bet on Cade.
You didn't.
And I mean, I'll tell you, like, you guys got screwed basically because Cade would have won that award, except the entire Detroit Pistons team, including Cade, turned into a 1940s shooting team for the first 2 months of the season.
Well, and to be fair too, Cade came in and like sprained his ankle? Like opening day of training camp, and that really dug a hole too. Yeah, so like Cade was not a bad bet at all. It was a better one than Jalen, which was shocking to me. But yeah, we both lost that one.
Tough on Jalen, tough. But like Paolo looks genuinely like the biggest thing for me is just Paolo's size. However, this does put into another conversation. The one little negative that was coming out of Summer League, Brandon, was the rebounding. So so I want to speak to that because here are the numbers. So Paolo only played twice. So again, we're talking about 2 Summer League games. So all of the caveats. The numbers, though, here are the box lines from the games. First game played 26 minutes, 17 points, 4 rebounds. Not great for a big man, 6 assists. Second game played 34 minutes, 23 points, 6 rebounds, a little better, 6 assists. So he averages out 20 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Guess which number stands out to me of those 3? It's the 6 assists. That's the one that I kept saying every time, because to me, again, back to the PRA thing, I would pick Paolo to lead rookies in points per game, probably. But I think you make a case. We'll get to Keegan. We'll get to Mathurin, some of those guys. I think there are other guys who could be in the mix. But
he's going to rebound, and he's going to rebound more than Keegan Murray and Mathurin, not necessarily more than Jabari or Chet, but he's going to assist certainly more than any of those guys, I think, because of how much he has the ball here.
So the one thing I would push back on is if you really believe in the PRA, if you really believe in it, you got to be a little cautious with Paolo. So that second game where he had 6 assists, do you know how many he had at half?
I do not.
0. He had no rebounds in the first half. None.
Wait, rebounds or assists?
Rebounds, sorry.
Okay.
He had 0 rebounds in the first half. And we were all like, Paolo has like 19 points or like 14 points or whatever. But they're like, he hasn't rebounded once. And he wasn't trying. And what pretty obviously happened is he got in the locker room and was like, oh, I don't have a rebound. I should go get some rebounds.
Yeah.
And went out and grabbed enough. And so my thing here is, I will tell you that we talked about how defense doesn't matter. He's not going to be a good defender, and that's fine. Like, it does not matter in the context of this award at all, nor does it matter for Orlando.
Yeah.
I am worried about the rebounding, that if you think that rebounds are going to be a drag on him just enough to like, the question is just basically at his position, will he be able to grab enough for it to be okay with that total PRA number? Right.
Yeah.
Because he averaged 31 PRA in those 2 games, and he's not going to average that in the league. Right. This is summer league. If he averages, say, 17, 4, and 4. Okay. That's 25.
Yeah. That was our minimum baseline that we set earlier.
That gets us to like just the threshold of that. So like, he would have to have the ball a lot to generate 6 assists per game. Like, that's extremely high. So that if you're concerned about it, like, that might be, if you that's really fair. Want to tie to the rules, I do have some concerns about Paolo's overall rebounding. Maybe he comes in the league and he's like the coaches are on him and it's just like, you got to do this, dig in. And he just does it, right? He just like gets a ton of, or he finds that he can get easy points by getting putbacks. That's another thing that's like pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say is that I think part of it is I don't think he's going to have necessarily a lot of offensive rebounds because of the offensive role he's having. Yeah. Like, if he's going to shoot 20-foot fadeaways and run point from the top of the arc, he's not going to be getting offensive rebounds. Like, you can't do both of those things necessarily. So, but that's the price. You're going to get more points and assists because of it at the lack of rebounds. I think your concern is fair. I think your amount of concern is too much in that I think setting the bar at 17, 4, and 4, the 4 rebounds, I think that's really selling him short. 4 rebounds, he's going to play 32 minutes a game or whatever he plays. 4 rebounds is just too low. Like, there's a lot of missed shots in the NBA. The Magic are going to miss a lot of shots. Like, 4 rebounds is too low. I think even if you say, I agree, I don't think his rebounds will be high. I think 17, 6, and 4 is where I would put as kind of a expected floor-ish median outcome for him.
Okay.
I think 6 is better than 4. And that now you're at 27 and you're pretty comfortably in that PRA range.
I get it. Again, this is built a lot off of those two games.
You really didn't like his rebounding.
Well, it's not that. Here's the thing: is like, I was so amazed by him. Like, I was just like, holy God,
the
this
one
guy's like
glaring thing that stood out.
Like, everyone's response was like, how is it, like, why did we ever think anybody else should go number 1? Like, it was like crazy how much everyone was just like, it was like Paolo Banchero is the best player here, and it is not close. And that's after Chet had the monster game in the first game in the Utah Summer League, and then like had good games in Vegas where everyone's really excited about him, but it was still like, but there's Paolo. Like, Paolo looks like a monster. And like, look, some of it may just be like the competitive spirit gets in, and he's averaging like, and maybe again, I'm just trying to give the full picture of what it could look like. And also, like, look, if we look at last season, there were, Mobley's rebounds weren't necessarily massive. So a lot of it also depends on, like, he's going to be playing next to Wendell Carter Jr. and Mo Bamba, right? So like, there's going to be guys that are rebound absorbers there. They do have a lot sunk into Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz, I feel like, in terms of equity. So like, giving him the ball and being like, you're the primary guy. A good kind of comparison for this, honestly, might be, I want to look this up real quick, is guess the number 1 player that he was compared to most from everybody at Summer League. Do you know?
You're saying Paolo?
Mm-hmm.
I would guess Blake Griffin.
Carmelo Anthony.
Okay, that was my other guess.
Yeah, that
I was
was
going to guess Blake or Carmelo.
And this is actually like this is a really good kind of comp here. So Melo, his rookie season, by the way, poor Melo and Wade for coming out the same year as LeBron. Just poor guys.
Rough.
Melo averaged 21 and 6 his rookie season, 2.8 assists per game. So he very easily clears the 25 PRA number. He averages 21 and 6. Now, Melo, the next seasons went to 5.7 and then 4.9 and then 6. He bounces up to 7.4 in 2008, and he's back down. He basically he starts to average at around 7 as he gets a little bit older, but he drops between year 1 and year 2. But that rookie season, he averages 6 boards a game.
Yeah.
And Carmelo was never like a super until really New York was when he started being like really aggressive on rebounds. So early on, he wasn't. He was also, a pretty skinny kid. So if 6 boards is what Melo got in 2004, I think that you're probably right that we should put the bar at 6. And if we say like we think he's getting to 17 rebounds or 17 points at least, and that's like a low bar, I think, for Paolo scoring 17 points and 6 boards. We're at 23. The assist number is going to be way over that. So we're very much into the PR.
Yeah. So to me, why I said Blake Griffin instead of Carmelo Anthony, and those really were the 2 guys I was thinking about. I'm thinking of late career Blake Griffin, not now Blake Griffin, but the version where the offense ran through him more. And Carmelo, I don't think really ever was that as far as the passing that we saw Blake become. Yeah. So I think that's where, if you think of Carmelo, not quite enough scoring, but more passing, I think is a good indicator. And I want to consider too the team context. So let's kind of transition into, comparing Paolo to Chet and Jabari. Neither one of us, I think, is going to tell you a bet on right now, certainly on Chet or Jabari. I think team context is important because you mentioned Cole Anthony, you mentioned Markelle Fultz. They have last year's number 5 pick, Jalen Suggs. They got guards on this team, but last year, the Magic had only 3 guys that scored 12 points a game on the entire roster. Their leading scorer was Cole Anthony at 16.3. They also did not have anyone average 6 assists per game. Their leading assist was Cole Anthony at 5.7. So to me, that indicates a void for scoring and playmaking, and that is a team waiting for a Paolo to step into that void. So I want to come back to the bet on a top 3, bet on the number 1 pick thing. Right now at DraftKings, like you said, plus 400 for Paolo. Plus 400 implies 20% odds of winning. So since 1990, a top 3 pick has been the rookie of the year 67.6% of the time. If you flip that into betting odds, if you could bet on a top 3 pick will win, the implied odds would be minus 209. So if you could somehow just figure out which one of the top 3 is the clear best of the top 3, you have a huge favorite. You have a 2/3 favorite. In fact, just number 1 pick, we said 44% number 1 pick wins. The implied odds of just betting the number 1 pick based on nothing else but being the number 1 pick is plus 127. So we're getting Paolo right now at plus 400. If it's still there, I keep checking every day. Like, please, can we get this podcast out? Because you kind of like Paolo here. I very, very like Paolo Banchero, and I've bet it twice already. And I really think that is the position you have to have going into the season. Because back to the team context thing and the role thing, this is why I think Paolo stands out a lot from Chet Holmgren and from Jabari, because the Oklahoma City Thunder have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, scored almost 25 points a game last year. They have Josh Giddey, who put up 12, 8, and 6 as a rookie. Giddey and Shai, 12 assists a game combined. Lou Dort scored 17 a game. Chet Holmgren, I think, has a very good chance. There's almost no chance he leads the team in points a game or assists a game. He may not even lead in rebounds a game. Like, he's a skinny dude. Rebounds are not going to be easy for any of these 3 guys yet. Giddey could have more rebounds, I think, than Chet, depending on how the season goes. So role for what they can be, that's problematic for him. Jabari Smith, I think, is more problematic. You got Jalen Green, the star rookie, 17.5 points a game. Post All-Star break, over 22 points a game. You got KPJ, 15, 5, and 6 essentially last year. And then you have Shangan and Ty Washington, Josh Christopher, Tari Eason. You've got Garuba, Knicks. Like, you have a lot of young guys that need development time. there's less of that in Orlando. Of the three guys, there is a much bigger void to just step in, play now, and do a lot of stuff for us in Orlando's context than in Houston's or Oklahoma City's.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that you like on the board right now? We'll talk about like when to bet it throughout the season, but is there anybody else on the board that you really like that's on the board right now?
So I think we talked about like top 10, top 5, all those things. I think the obvious, I want to do it in 2 parts. Number 4 pick.
We don't have much time, so we got to hurry.
Okay. Number 4 was Keegan Murray. Number 5, Jaden Ivey. Number 6, Benedict Mathurin. I think the anybody else conversation has to be those 3. It has to start with those 3. And then I have one long shot after that. To me, of those 3, I think Keegan Murray is my favorite of the 3.
Yep.
Keegan has played 6 summer league games, averaged 21.8 points a game. He scored at least 23 points, all but 1. He had at least 7 rebounds, all but 1. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
23 and 7. That's 30 PRA, just that alone. I don't think he's going to have many assists. I'm worried about the team context. Fox, 23 points a game, Sabonis, 19, 12, and 6. Barnes, 16 points a game. I'm worried about that. So I'm not going to bet him yet, but plus 1,000 at points bet right now for Keegan. I think that's too low. I think you need something to happen to Paolo to open the door, but it has happened. It's some of these big men in the past. The Kings maybe make a playoff push. That could help the more recent narrative we're seeing. Keegan is not going to be a hub. He's not going to be a hub for that team right now. But I think of the 3, he's the one I like the best. You like him too?
Yeah. The biggest thing with him was that I would watch him and he would have great games. And then he would have games where I was like, he's kind of hasn't done anything. And then I would look at the screen and it would be like, yeah, he's got 16, 6, and 5 in the third quarter. And you'd be like, what? Like,
it just happens. It just comes in the flow. And that's how it was at Iowa too.
He just picks up numbers. And those guys, if we talk about the PRA argument, that's like a really strong one, is that he's going to do like a whole lot of things. I do think if we look at who is above him in the pecking order in Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Harrison Barnes, Davion Mitchell. That's 4 guys. And then Monk is going to be 5 on that list.
Kevin Huerter, maybe they just traded a 1st-round pick for him.
Herter's going to get more usage. That's 6.
Yeah.
So like, he's not going to start. I don't think he is. Maybe.
I think he starts. I think he's a small forward starter.
Okay. So what do you think the lineup is? You think it's Fox?
I think it's Fox and one of Huerter or Monk, probably Huerter. And then Keegan Murray at the 3, Harrison Barnes at the 4, Sabonis at the 5.
And you think Davion comes off the bench? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think Davion's the backup point.
We'll see if they want to win games. I think the rookie's going to have a hard time. So that's, I guess here's the thing. You're getting 700 on Keegan. I don't necessarily know the number's going to drop.
You can get it again, 10-1 at points bet. So 1,000.
Oh, sorry. So 10-1, even if they drop it, it's not going to get too far down. Right. Yeah. Wait. This is where we get into the conversation about waiting. Wait for the first month of the season. Like wait. We need to see where these guys slot in the rotation. Like, if you certainly
wait for now while it's mid-July, because for example, I certainly think, I don't have intel on it, you have better intel than me, I think there's a real chance Harrison Barnes does not end the year with the Kings. Right. And that is, he's literally the same tweener forward position Keegan Murray is. That would be huge if Harrison Barnes gets traded tomorrow. I'm betting Keegan Murray immediately because the number will not be the right price.
Correct.
So we'll wait for the roster move, wait for the playing time to increase and the numbers to come. I think you're right that, like, as things stand right now, he's not the right pick, but there is a clear avenue for him.
And look, I was betting Evan Mobley from the first month on. I bet him like a ton. I still got good value on Barnes once it started to pick up, because I started sensing the late push for him. I need to just once again stress how bad of a choice that was. Just Scotty was great. It's just like Evan Mobley was a legitimate defensive player of the year candidate. Like, I could make an argument for him. Anyway, I'm not mad. It's fine. Just Evan Mobley is a transcendent talent. Anyway, I think there's value in waiting, because like that, wait till training camp. We actually learn a ton in training camp from a betting perspective, Brandon. Like, we get a sense for the vibe, which I think helps us with win totals. We get a sense for rotations, which helps us with where players are slotting in. We learn a lot more in preseason than I used to think that we did. I think from a I think from a regular season narrative perspective, we don't learn much. I think from a betting perspective, we learn a ton in preseason.
Yeah, I think so.
And so we're recording this now and you're like, well, what am I supposed to, I'm trying to tell you, like, I'm always for build a position early and then hedge against it later. That's how I approach things. If you want to bet rookie of the year right now, if you're like, I want to bet one, Brandon and I both agree it's Paolo. And that this is a lot of conversation to say bet the number one pick. But look, honestly, I haven't bet the number one pick very often. And usually that number is worse. I don't know why this number is not lower. This number should be much closer.
Yeah, well, that's
shorter.
That's the thing. If you listen to me on the podcast, you know the last thing I tell you to do is, hey, you know what? Bet the favorite.
Yeah.
Let's bet the favorite, not the long shot. That's not the thing that I do. The favorite should not be plus 400. That's exactly the point. Like, if you think that the 68% top three pick, if you think that Paolo is even 30% likely to be the best of the top three, then plus 400 is too long. That's just math. So I don't wait on Paolo. If you like the top three, or if you like Paolo and you want to bet, do bet him now. There's not going to be a plus 400 available for much longer. Like it was plus 460 a week ago because Chet had one amazing game and FanDuel was like, what? Okay, plus 460. And then immediately in like a week later, we even back out. And look, we maybe will have that early in the season, but I think the odds are going to shorten on the top guys. So I agree. Wait, except if you want Paolo, you're not getting a 4-1 later. It's just not going to be there.
Yeah. So I think wait for Keegan. He's the next one I would look at. I'd probably wait on the Pacers and Benedict Mathurin. I still think there's a lot of stuff to figure out there.
The case against Mathurin, I think, is the case that happened against Jalen Green. You got a similar style player where it's just going to come and go, and you need some avenues to open for him. Jaden Ivey, the case against him is Cade Cunningham. Yeah. Because Cade, post All-Star break, 22, 6, and 7.
Yep.
That's the hub. Like, you basically need Cade to disappear for a long stretch. That's Jaden Ivey's path to becoming the rookie of the year. So that's,
and I think Jaden's got the skill for it.
Yes.
But the opportunity isn't as much there.
Yes.
I also think Detroit's probably going to be a little bit more geared towards winning, which that changes like how you build things. You're not just pumping stats through a guy versus the Magic. I think are absolutely going to want to pump stats through Paolo Banchero. So that's your best bet is Paolo Banchero, shot for the best number. Track all our picks in the Action Network app. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you again next Thursday for another edition of Buckets.